York. We have two wonderful guests tonight, Keir Dullea and Dillon, who are both terrific actors. But what is amazing to me is they are married, happily married, and I want to know what it's like for two actors to live together and, as you have often done, to work together. I think of acting as such a high-strung profession that anybody who goes into the profession must automatically be high-strung. If there are two high-strung people, isn't that a little intense? But tell me I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
I'm wrong. Okay.
It enhances every experience we've had. I mean, I think the fact that we're an extremely happily married couple, and that just enhances the experience when we're together. I mean, it just makes it easier.
I think also we're actually two of the least high-strung actors you probably will.
Oh, okay.
So I think that helps.
Yes,
so.
but isn't being high-strung an occupational hazard for the most part?
You know what? I think I think both of us have other interests. We've both had wonderful long careers, and I don't think either one of us really has anything to prove. And I went back to school just approaching my 40s and got a master's degree in Oriental medicine. So I'm a licensed acupuncturist. So for 23 years, I've had a second career that kind of balances the acting.
Okay, good.
And you know, Keir's had such a long, fruitful career. When we get to act together, it's a gift. We did Cat on a Hot Tin Roof together. His Big Daddy was amazing, and I did Big Mama, and we had a fabulous time with a wonderful director, Elizabeth Falk. We did on Golden Pond down at the oh God,
the West, not the West War Country Playhouse.
No, it's the one down in Bucks County Playhouse. Okay, I just had a birthday, and the card that somebody gave me says, hang on a second, I'm going to read it to you because it's just wonderful and very appropriate. Okay, this is the card. Is this the birthday where you start asking yourself life's big questions? Like, why did I come into this room? I knew a minute ago. That's that's where we are here.
Okay.
Anyway.
But when you act together, I think you started, one of your first appearances was in a terrific show, and you toured it, Death Trap. And you were just married right before you did Death Trap. When you work together, do you give advice to each other? Do you accept comments from each other?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know, our egos are not so fragile that we can't take a little. I'm willing to. You know, I think it was Olivier who said, you know, steal from the best. So I'm willing to take advice from the best. And
as a matter of fact, doing Cat on a Hot Tin Roof together was probably, if I had to choose, what was the peak experience of my whole acting life. Most of my peak experiences haven't been in film, they've been on stage. But the peak experience of all was Maya playing Big Mama and I was playing Big Daddy. And that was 20 years after I had done the first Broadway revival.
40.
Oh, 40? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a long time.
I did the first Broadway revival.
So Elizabeth Ashley.
With Elizabeth Ashley.
And you were
and Fred Gwynne. And Fred Gwynne was a great, I've worked with Burl Ives. I happen to think that the best Big Daddy I had ever experienced, both either on stage or off stage with, was Fred Gwynne. He was absolutely brilliant. So when I got to do Big Daddy that many years later, I didn't copy him. It was too many years later, but I certainly, he was there in my gut. He was in there. He was in my soul.
But how fascinating that you did two iconic roles in a great Tennessee Williams play at different stages in your life.
It's true.
Yeah, That's a rare opportunity. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but I know the audience will want me to absolutely acknowledge, Keir, that you starred in one of the greatest films ever made. Your name will always be associated with it. It's inevitable, a point to make. It is a masterpiece, Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey. Does it concern you that that one credit, of course, overshadows almost everything else because it's one of the most well-known films ever made?
I mean, if one could only be remembered for one thing, I could do a lot worse.
Yeah,
A lot worse.
a lot.
I'm very proud. I loved every minute of working with that man. He was extraordinary. He was a genius, and yeah, it was a wonderful experience.
But you came to Space Odyssey after you'd worked with another director of a very different temperament, Otto Preminger.
Oh yeah.
And, Bunny Lake is Missing is a terrific film, and you're terrific in it. And I think Maya agrees with me. That
Yes, but I'm so glad that I'd seen Space Odyssey and I hadn't seen Bunny Lake is Missing before I married the guy.
Oh, I know, because he's awfully convincing as that nutcase in Bunny Lake is Missing.
He is.
But Otto Preminger was a difficult director for you to work with.
Well,
And
that's
Kubrick was not.
That's putting it politely to say that he was a difficult director. He was impossible. As a matter of fact, I am told someone in the crew overheard Laurence Olivier quietly go to Preminger and just say to him, "Oh, Otto, dear boy, I really wish you wouldn't scream at the children." And
I guess Carol Lindley got it as bad as you did.
oh yeah, she got it bad too. We both did. It wasn't fun. But he screamed at a lot of people. He was a screamer.
He was a screamer.
But you know what was worse was his biting sarcasm. I mean, he just seemed to love to humiliate people. So,
but he got good performances out of people, and that's a delicious film, Bunny Lake is Missing.
Yeah. Well,
it's a great film. But when you went to work for Kubrick, who is, whether fairly or not known as an actor's director, but you would dispute that description.
He was the opposite experience than working with Otto Preminger. He was very quiet, never raised his voice, was concerned by anything you might bring up. But I happen to think his choices were always so brilliant. I never questioned him. But I felt so relaxed working with him. I think everybody did working with Stanley. He was a lovely human being.
He has the reputation of not being an actor's director. You look at his movies and the performances are uniformly outstanding. So that reputation is not merited at all. I think he was a great actor's director.
One could say that he was brilliant at casting. And if you cast brilliantly, you don't have to do a lot of directing in terms of acting. I guess, I mean, that's my theory about, because he cast everything he did, he cast so brilliantly.
What qualities that you had were right for David Bowman? Did you understand why he cast you?
Well, actually, now if you put it that, I'm not sure. I mean, I think back at my work up till then, and I can't really see what he saw in my previous work that might have given him the idea of, because I never met him. I was cast. My agent called me up today and he said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "No, why?" He said, "You've just been offered the lead in Stanley Kubrick's next film." And that was it. I never met him.
You never auditioned by tape or anything else?
It was out of the blue, completely.
Maya, what do you think it was?
I think it was a certain boyish quality and a purity that Keir has just naturally that enabled us to go on that journey with him, with somebody who did not have an agenda, and allowed us to go with him and age with him. And then when he becomes that star child, it's so clear that this pure being, you can see how he evolves into, at the very end of the movie, when the old version of him dies and he turns into that star child, that's Keir. I mean, it's, anyway, that's what I saw.
Yeah, well, this obviously Kubrick saw the same thing. Like, Keir, you once told me that while you were making the film, your co-star Gary Lockwood was convinced it was going to be one of the great films,
Yes,
but you weren't sure.
Not because I didn't think the film was brilliant, but I actually thought it might have been ahead of its time, and I think for a while it was.
It was.
I was going to say Warner Brothers. It wasn't Warner Brothers. It was
MGM.
MGM. And MGM got a little worried the first few weeks. People walked out of the world premiere of the film in the world premiere in Los Angeles, the New York premiere, and the Los Angeles premiere. People actually, I won't say a lot of people, but enough that you noticed. And but then, within a month, there were lines around the block. And
it caught on. It caught on, and it hit a nerve.
With the young generation, I think. It was the young generation that saved the film.
You and Gary have been invited to screenings around the world over many years. Do you ever get tired of talking about the film or being honored for the film or signing autographs for the film?
I'll tell you quick, I'll do this really quickly. All of you who know the film, there isn't a lot of dialogue in 2001 compared to most films. It's a very visual experience. But there was only one scene that I played where I was going to have to learn a bunch of lines, and it was a mission control, a dialogue with mission control about a problem. And it was shot, and I was really worried about it because it was technological gobbledygook. It was just so difficult to memorize. So I worked on it ahead of time for weeks. It was the only way I worked on lines for weeks in that film was this one little scene, which later on, when he was editing the film, Stanley decided it was a redundant scene. There's nothing wrong with the way we did it. He said it was too similar to another scene, so he never used it. But because of the way I learned the lines, I will do it very quickly for you. It'll take me about 30 seconds. I didn't do it this quickly when I shot it, but the lines were, Mission Control, this is X-Ray Delta 1. At 1920 on board Fall Prediction Center, and our 9000 computer showed Alpha Echo 35U that this possible failure within 48 hours. Request check your in-ship system simulator. Also confirm your approval, our plan to go EVA and replace Alpha Echo 35U prior to failure. Mission Control, this is X-Ray Delta 1, transmission concluded. That will go to my grave, those lines.
And this is over 50 years ago now.
50, for me, it was 1966. So it's 50 some years, 56 years, something like that.
Did you think when you were doing those extraordinary scenes at the end, when your character ages very rapidly, that these were previews of Keir Dullea as he was going to get older?
I don't know. I think he looks better than he did in. I think he's aged pretty darn well.
He ages well in the film too, actually.
But
well, the oldest version.
Well, he hasn't gotten to the old version yet.
No, not yet. No, we'll never get to that. Okay, Maya, I want to ask you. I know people will be curious to know, and I saw the wonderful Broadway production of Our Town, in which Paul Newman was the
he was the stage manager.
The stage manager, and I was struck by how it was staged. Paul Newman obviously talked to your director so that it was staged so he would not get applause on his entrance.
Yeah.
It was not a star entrance. He took a bow, which was not a star bow. The whole point was he wanted to be part of the ensemble. Was that his attitude during the whole production?
Absolutely. And it started out at Westport Country Playhouse, which at the time, Joanne Woodward was the artistic director. And it was after 9/11. Joanne wanted to do something that felt like community, because she felt like, well, as we all did, we were all just torn apart after 9/11. And so the next summer, when she was planning the season, she wanted to do our town as a healing gesture. And when she was talking about doing it, Paul said, asked her if she'd consider him for the stage manager. And she kind of laughed at him because he hadn't been on stage in 40 years. And so he memorized the whole thing, which is a lot of monologues, and proved to her that, yes, he could go back on stage. And James Naughton was our director, wonderful actor. You probably all know him.
Yes, absolutely.
Broadway. But he was a fabulous director. And when we did it that summer in 2002, we had 2 weeks of rehearsal. So it's a good thing that Paul had done all that memorization. And Paul's just a big kid. He loved rehearsing. He loved just goofing around. But he was very serious about the acting. And then when it came time to move to New York, which he did really as a love gesture to Joanne, to raise money for the theater. And he didn't take a star salary. He actually didn't take the star dressing room, because the star dressing room at the Booth Theater had been chopped off and given to Chicago. Actually took the stage level star dressing room because BB Newirth was coming back to Chicago, and somebody else had the star dressing room, and she wouldn't come back unless she had a star dressing room. So they broke through the wall and they took the stage level star dressing room for the Booth Theater and joined it into, I can't remember which theater it is, but so the Chicago Theater.
The Schubert, yeah.
The Schubert Theater,
yeah. The Schubert, yeah.
No, if you notice, Paul, we had alphabetical billing. It was an ensemble piece. It was our town.
He insisted on that. He did not play the stage manager like a great legendary movie star returning to the stage. That's not how he approached the whole thing.
I think he was
And he wouldn't let us in the audience treat him as this huge star.
I know.
You could feel the resistance that he was going to do it his way, which was to serve the play and the ensemble. And he didn't take a star bow.
Nope. Mm-mm.
Was he democratic backstage in his treatment?
Oh, he was fabulous. Yes. Oh, he was just Paul. Yes, he was wonderful. Just such a gentleman. I was so honored to be a part of that ensemble. One night though, he started, Jane Curtin was all set to go on with I don't know if you remember the play very well, but there's a scene where she and Emily are snipping snap peas or beans. They're doing something. And Paul, instead of doing that monologue, which I can't remember what starts that. Anyway, he jumped to the next monologue, which introduces the editor who's mowing a lawn, and that was Jeff DeMunn. Well, suddenly he starts in the next monologue, jumps over, and Jane Curtin was the first one who picked it up. And I'm up in my dressing room and I hear, Maggie Lacey to the stage, please. Maggie Lacey to the stage. And everybody was frantically rearranging everything. Jim Naughton was in the back of the house watching. He ran backstage. We had a brilliant stage manager who suddenly was redoing all the lights and trying to figure out, can we do we skip all this? Because the monologue that he skipped basically introduces the entire town. So Jeff DeMunn, he had his jacket on. He was going to come in as the editor. Suddenly he throws the jacket off. He comes in mowing the lawn. They do that monologue. And then Paul comes off stage, and Jim Naughton told him what he'd done. And he said, well, I'll just go back on and do the other one. So we flipped them. And it was seamless. We had a brilliant stage manager, and you can do that with an ensemble where everybody is really pulling their weight. And John Simon was in the audience that night. and he never noticed.
Oh, okay, that's professionalism and cool to the nth degree. Keir, you've mentioned that you've actually preferred doing stage as an actor. Your most memorable experiences have been in theater rather than movies. Do you hold to that statement?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, in film is a director's medium, whereas theater is much more. There's more opportunities to come up with ideas, and it's also it's a very complex relationship. In film, you have a camera, and that's your audience. Whereas in theater, even if it's not a comedy, even if it's silence, there are different kinds of silence to experience in the theater. And when you have an audience in the palm of your hand, that's one kind of silence. When they're bored, that's another kind of silence. And it goes on.
And you can feel it. You feel it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You feel the temperature of the house.
And it's also, I love the challenge of going from A to Z. I mean, you know, film is done in pieces. Sometimes you begin the end of a film, and then you end up toward the end of because of requirements of location and so on. It's very rarely do you do films in order, whereas in the theater it goes from A to Z, and it's you've got a couple of hours that you're going to be on there, and it's a greater challenge, I think.
And is there a challenge of keeping it fresh, repetition, longer runs? You have to keep your interpretation fresh.
You know, if it's been a wonderful, I can't say that every run of every play has been an extraordinary experience, but I've had enough that each time you hope, well, let's see what happens. I mean, I've had enough extraordinary, for me personally, experiences in the theater that make it my first love.
I just want to go briefly over some of the theater highlights. I discovered two things about Keir Dullea's theater career. He appeared at the Gaiety Theatre in Dublin in The Shawshank Redemption. And Maya, you said it was a total box office bonanza.
It was brilliant. It was just brilliant. And the Stephen King would not let them bring it to Broadway.
Oh.
Which is such a shame because it was a brilliant, the late Reg Cathey,
and then the other guy.
And Kevin Anderson and Keir were the three Americans, and the rest were Irish.
Brilliant actors.
And they were amazing.
Yeah.
And the Irish, their American accents were fabulous.
Really?
So, yeah.
Did the Irish company treat you well, Keir? Was the audience cordial to you?
Keir's in love with Ireland.
Oh yeah,
he's absolutely in love with Ireland.
They were so audible in their reaction.
Oh, every night they would be stamping their feet on the floor.
They'd be stamping their feet on the floor. I mean, it was just amazing. They were extraordinary audiences, every single one of them.
Now, did you do Bus Stop in London with Lee Remick?
Yes, I did.
How did that go?
It was wonderful with the director.
Right, Vivian Matalon directed
Vivian Matalon.
Oh, he's a great director.
Yeah.
I did at least three plays with Vivian. I loved working with him. The first, what was the? I did a play called P.S. Your Cat is Dead. That was the first time I worked with him, and then we did Bus Stop with Lee Remick.
Was Lee Remick a good Sherry? Because that was the part Marilyn Monroe had created.
Fabulous. She was fabulous. Yeah.
And did the British audience come out to support two American movie stars?
Did they do what?
Did they come out and support you, the British audience?
Yeah.
They were interested in seeing two Americans in an American play.
We got good reviews, as I remember, and yeah.
I suppose your longest run on Broadway was in Butterflies Are Free. Is that probably accurate?
The longest, I'm trying to remember, is that yeah.
And then you did it in London as well.
That's right.
Yeah. What was
I did it with Blythe Danner on Broadway, and then in London, it was an actress by the name of Barbara Ferris who starred in There's a Girl in My Soup. She appeared on Broadway in that. That's where you might know her from.
Yes. Yeah, I saw the Broadway production. I don't recall, were you still in it when Gloria Swanson joined the company?
No.
You had left then.
Eileen Heckert was my mother.
Yours. But then, Gloria Swanson did it on Broadway.
No, she came, somebody else came in. I think, I can't remember. It seemed that I did get toward the end of my part in the play. I think Eileen Heckert left earlier than I did, and I think I was in it for another 3 or 4 weeks with, maybe it was the understudy. I can't remember who played it, but it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Gloria.
Yeah. No, it was fascinating to see her, but of course Eileen Heckert originated the role, and there was only one Eileen Heckert.
Right.
Am I right about this, that P.S. Your Cat is Dead is connected to Sal Mineo? Am I?
The California production that Keir was going to do with him.
It wasn't. I was supposed to do it with Sal, and we were in rehearsal for the Los Angeles production, and the production out there was being directed by Milton Katselas, who had directed me in Butterflies Are Free, coincidentally.
Yes.
And Sal was fabulous.
He was a wonderful actor.
I loved working with him. We got along. So I was probably the last person who knew him personally to see him alive.
You saw him the last night of his life.
The last, we were still in rehearsal. He never got to do it. We never did it before an audience together. I think we were 5 or 6 days from opening night when what happened. We dismissed, Milton Katselas had a class to teach. So he let us work with the stage manager and she said, when you finish, when you feel you've explored this moment, just let it go until tomorrow, and I'll see you in the morning. So we hugged each other goodbye, and he was, unfortunately,
he was attacked in his parking garage.
He was attacked in his parking garage and was killed.
In West Hollywood, and the show never opened. Was there a...
Oh, it opened.
Yeah.
Oh, it opened.
It's not with him.
They got somebody who had just done the part in San Francisco and flew him down. And
he came in.
And you opened in it, Keir?
Yes.
Yeah, you stayed. But that must have been difficult. That must have been a difficult transition.
After that, where I can't remember his name, but I think the actor who finally opened in the play with me had done it in San Francisco, Will Sal Mineo.
No, playing the other part?
Yeah.
So he switched and played
No,
Sal?
that's the part he was.
No. He wouldn't have done it.
Sal Mineo didn't play my part.
No, I know, but you did it with an actor who had done the same part that Sal Mineo did.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you did it in New York as well.
Earlier.
Production.
He wasn't going to do it. He turned down, he was offered the part of the man who fell to earth in the movie. And Sal Mineo, this is what Keir's told me, Sal Mineo approached him in a restaurant, right?
That's right.
And begged him to do P.S. Your Cat is Dead because Sal wanted it to be his comeback. And so Keir turned down the movie that David Bowie then did. And
that's right. I've forgotten about that. That's true.
Yeah.
And then there was a dramatization of this story, and somebody played you in a TV movie about.
Apparently it was
Sal
terrible.
Mineo.
It got bad reviews.
Yes.
And I remember reading a quote. The guy who played Keir decided that he was going to play Keir gay. And he wasn't going to talk to Keir because he wanted to make it his own. So
That's right.
he created his own version of reality, I guess.
But speaking of playing real people, Keir, I was interested in seeing you play Audrey Hepburn's father on the Audrey Hepburn story. And her father was a Nazi, is that correct?
Sympathizer, yeah.
He
Yeah, a
was
Nazi sympathizer.
he was a real right
Yeah.
winger. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, but I remember a great line you had in the show when you said to the actress playing Audrey, "Why do you need my love? The whole world is in love with you."
That's a great line. Yeah.
Great line, but I would think he was a rather difficult father.
Well, they were estranged, so
Yeah. I wonder why.
yeah.
Maya, you had a great success on Broadway, Tony nominated for Crimes of the Heart. Beth Henley. I, I'm wondering, is that show as well remembered as it should be? It
That show
wonder
is
if it's dropped
very
a little
difficult
bit.
to do. I think one of the reasons that we were so successful is we didn't know how funny it was. And we really played it seriously, and we were finding the truth of these eccentric sisters in this small southern town. And I think all of us were shocked at how funny it was and the laughs that we got. And it wasn't precious. We really, I don't know. And we had a wonderful director, Mel Bernhardt, who also directed me in Da, both of his Tony nominated shows. And I saw one of the revivals and they knew it was funny. And they played it for the laughs. And, you know, if you're, wink, wink, nod, nod, this is funny, it isn't funny.
It's the kind of show that could easily go wrong. It requires a very delicate balance.
Yeah,
it's a hard show to do. I could feel it.
Yeah.
It's a hard show to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
And the original production got it, and revivals haven't. And I think because of that, it sort of dropped a little bit below the radar. It deserves to be in a higher place.
I did a show with an actor who played the young lawyer in one of the revivals. And he told me that his babe, I don't remember who it was, but she decided that instead of being in love with him, which that's the story. There's gotta be something between Babe and Barnett. Babe and Barnett. It's that there's something delicious about that. And she decided that she was in love with Willie J, which
well, it changes the play.
that really changes the play. Yeah. So that play can go off the rails pretty
very easily. Now,
yeah.
Maya, is my research correct? Were you the original Agnes in Agnes of God?
Yeah, it was written
first one.
Yeah. I was doing my second Broadway show. I had been in Da, and I left that to do Once a Catholic, playing a young Catholic school girl who wants to be a nun. And it was going from Da, which was still running on Broadway. I left after a year and a half of being with it, to a show that closed after 2 weeks. I mean, we did a pre-Broadway tour, but then once we got to Broadway, it just didn't quite work. They changed the ending from the London production. We had the same director, Mike Ockrent, who went on to direct some wonderful musicals and died way, way too soon. But they had to change the ending of it, which didn't quite work. But John Pielmeyer, who I had gone to school with at Penn State, came to see the show, and he dropped off the script. And he said, I mean, he was inspired by a news article, but then he told me that he wrote it for me. and I did the production at the Actors Theater of Louisville, and then got Agnes. Then I did Crimes of the Heart, and then Crimes of the Heart was moving to Broadway at the same time that Agnes of God, the producers wanted to move it, and I did the backers audition, and then they wouldn't wait for me, and so I actually did it for 2 months when Amanda went on her vacation because she ended up being hospitalized for malnutrition. I think she had been subsisting on hamburgers and Hershey bars. And I only left, and that was after I had finished my contract with Crimes of the Heart. I went into the show, and then I left because I was going to play my flute in John Peelmeyer's and Irene O'Garden's wedding. So yeah, I was first Agnes.
But it was great that you got to play Agnes on Broadway anyway.
Yeah.
Now, Keir, what was it like to work with Elizabeth Ashley in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and then Little Foxes?
He's not only done Little Foxes, he's done a movie with Elizabeth Ashley where they have a naked shower scene. So everybody run to YouTube and watch the Paperback Hero.
Paperback Hero.
Yes.
Off stage, Elizabeth Ashley is rather theatrical and grand.
She was.
Did you break through that? She's very grand off stage, very theatrical.
Yeah.
Keir always said he's one of his favorite acting partners.
Yeah.
And he likens her to, what did you always say? Like a thoroughbred horse, like a racehorse. Who is just.
No, she wasn't grand when you came to work with her. She was very serious. I loved working with her. In fact, I would have to say the highlight in terms of actresses that I've worked with is my wife and Elizabeth Ashley and Blythe Danner.
In Butterflies Are Free.
Yeah.
So, and was Elizabeth Ashley different in Little Foxes than in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof in terms of a working relationship?
Oh yeah. I mean, she.
Well, there was a long time had passed because you did Little Foxes in the summer of 2002, and you had done you'd done Cat on a Hot Tin Roof in when did you do 60?
It was
70. I think
70.
Early 70s.
So 32 years later.
That's true.
Yeah. Now I have some photos here, as I promised, of one of my favorite of Keir's films. We haven't talked about it much, but I think it's a terrific movie. Can you see this?
Oh, Madam X.
Oh, Madam X with Lana Turner.
Yeah.
You told me that you get more fan mail from Madam X than from anything else you've ever done except Space Odyssey. Is that true?
I'm trying. Yeah, I think to a great extent that is true over the years. Yeah. But
I think it's a terrific film. It's a melodrama of a certain kind. You have to have a taste for it. I have to have a huge hankering for that kind of old school melodrama. It's terrific, and she's great in it.
I loved working with her. She was very kind to me. I was a little in awe of working with Lana Turner, this woman of great renown, and she was lovely. She was very simple and very quiet. Of course, she was playing a woman who was on her death. She's a woman who was dying. So,
and she's very honest in this film. Yeah. It's probably the first film in which she allowed herself to look older.
That's true.
There's no vanity in the performance.
No.
Didn't you think she did a terrific job in that kind of role?
Lovely, yeah. She was wonderful.
I don't know of anybody at that time who could play that style better than Lana Turner at that period, that kind of high melodrama. She took it seriously.
Yes, she did.
She took it absolutely, no joking around. Last week here we had as our guest Don Murray.
Oh well. Don was
and he was raving about your performance in The Hoodlum Priest.
Well, that was my first film, and I was very proud of our work on that. Wonderful director by the name of Irvin Kershner. And but Don was ultimately responsible for casting me. As a matter of fact, I was on the West Coast. I forgot what I was doing out there at the time. And I ended up, the director had me do an improvisation with Don Murray. That wasn't even using dialogue from the film. It was an improvisation on the situation of the film that was shown in the film. I've forgotten exactly which it was, but, and we did, and then they had me come in, they bought an actress and I did an improvisation with her. So I ended up doing 2 improvisation, one with Don Murray, and then the other improvisation was while the director and Don, who is the producer of the film also, watched me, and I got a firm offer to do the movie.
But in that, you play a role that if people know your career, I think they'd be surprised. Isn't that Maya, that Keir plays that part as well as he does? It's sort of casting against type from what we know.
Very
years
against
later.
type and almost unrecognizable if you look at some of his other films.
Is it the same actor?
I know, he looks like a different actor.
Yeah.
It's if you compare that to David and Lisa, you can see just how brilliant he is.
Yeah, David and Lisa, of course, is so well known. Do you have feelings about that now? I mean, it was a huge success at the time.
David and Lisa was ultimately, which was my second film, ultimately that was responsible for my film career. If it hadn't been for David and Lisa, which was made for $180,000. It was done on location. And the other leading actor had been a blacklisted actor under the McCarthy era who had had a previously very full Hollywood career.
Yeah,
and
Howard DeSilva.
And that was Howard DeSilva. And I love working with Howard.
But that film caught a nerve, it hit a nerve when it was released in the early 60s. Something about David and Lisa and the times fused together. Some films have that quality, and David and Lisa hit a note at that time, and it was enormously successful. I think it's still remembered well. I think it's still very well remembered. I did want to ask you, after you did Space Odyssey, why did you choose Desaad as your next?
That was not one of my favorite movies. Well,
I guess it sounded like a good idea at the time. I don't know.
I mean, the idea of playing that character appealed to me, but it was not what I had hoped it to be. I wouldn't want people to judge my acting talent based, if I saw no other film but Desaad, I don't think I'd have a career at all. I don't think, that's my opinion anyway. I think I'm terrible.
You don't want to be judged by that performance. But after Space Odyssey, the world was open to you and you chose that film. Very interesting. But you did, a few years after that, star in a Canadian-produced film that has a huge cult following, Black Christmas.
Oh yeah, and that was filmed up in Canada with, and it was the first film with
Olivia Hussey. And the director, who's gone on to do great stuff. Like, who directed? Who directed it?
Olivia Hussey's. It was her first.
I can't call it. It's not terrible. I can't call it up.
No, I can't remember.
I haven't seen the film in a while, but it's a great film. It has a terrific cult following.
Yeah.
Huge cult following.
Yeah.
And deservedly so. Now, you've both been under lockdown, I guess, during COVID. You're coming out of it. Are there acting jobs or
I just did
coming up?
I did an audition on this little thing here, sent it in, which I guess is now the wave of the future. I can't imagine casting directors are going to want to sit, in a room and watch actors when they can just have actors do all the work and send it in, and they can review all the tapes. But I booked a job, so I just filmed in North Carolina, and Keir came down with me just to hang out with
Tell
me.
the name of it.
It's a film version of Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which for every 50-year-old or any woman in their 50s, I mention that and they go, oh my God, I love that book. So it was a wonderful experience. A young woman director, and
Kathy Bates.
Kathy Bates plays the Jewish grandmother. I play the Christian grandmother. And it was just a wonderful experience. So,
will you go back to the Westport Country Playhouse with the right project?
Season, this year, they've decided they're not going back on stage. They're only doing remote stuff. Actually, they have something that's on right this week. I think it's up until the 18th. It's available on their website, where they had actors film themselves, and apparently, because I have a friend who watched it and said it was wonderful, they somehow put them all together. So except for the eye lines, that was not quite figured out, but so the actors look like they're all interacting. So you can go
will Westport, which is one of the great regional theaters, come back in person?
Absolutely, because they got funding. So somebody in the community stepped up and said, it's important. It's an important theater. So Westport is going to survive.
And I hope the two of you will appear there. Both of you have a long history with Westport, right? Long.
Hey, you know what definitely. Maya just found? What we want to show you.
That's not from.
This is, where is it?
Oh, he's looking for the picture
where's the other one?
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. This is not from. This is from.
This is from private.
This is from the first time
we worked together.
Yeah, we worked together in Private Lives.
Private Lives.
Yeah. This is. Yeah, I can't even see it. Okay. Anyway, here's another production. Keir's late wife Susie directed us in a fabulous production of Private Lives. That's where I fell in love with the way he treated her. I had just left a 10-year relationship, and I was able to witness what a wonderful marriage could be, watching Keir and Susie interact. Anyway, that was really the first time we got to know each other, and kept in touch. Susie invited me to his 60th birthday party, and then unfortunately a year later was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. So she left us way too soon, but Keir's convinced that she brought us together.
It's true.
So
but will I hope act in Westport and act again together when in person, not virtually.
Anytime Westport asks us to do anything,
you'll be there.
Yeah, they have Monday night script in hand readings. Anytime Annie Keefe, who was previously a fabulous stage manager and then became co-artistic director with Joanne Woodward, and she's now stepping down. And Mark Shanahan, who's a wonderful actor, wonderful director, he's taking over for the script in hand readings. And anytime they come, ask us to do anything, we're thrilled that such a wonderful theater is right here in our community.
And you've been Keir, you've been a long time Westport resident, right? Years. I actually want to end, Keir, by telling people your parents had the most wonderful profession in the world. They were booksellers.
Right. In Greenwich Village. That's where I was brought up, in Greenwich Village. They had a bookshop. It was called the Modern Bookshop. It was on University Place between 8th and 9th Street on the east side of University Place. And they had it for many, many years. And
isn't that so? You grew up among books, the son of booksellers in Greenwich Village.
And they were also, my father had been in dramatics in college, and my mother was also at Northwestern University, was active in drama. They didn't go on to have theater careers after that, but it affected them so that many years later, when I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and I was living in San Francisco, I had quit college in the middle of the night. I less than a semester. I was going to Rutgers University and I quit and I hitchhiked from New Brunswick, New Jersey to San Francisco and got a job in heavy construction as a carpenter's apprentice. And my parents, they were very understanding because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So they came out to visit me. And now what they had done is all through high school, I had the leads. You could take drama as a half unit course in the high school I went to. So in fact, Blythe Danner went to the same high school, but not at the same time, eight years earlier, eight years after I was there. So my parents saw me in a lot of productions that I was in high school. So now we skip to their visit to San Francisco after a year that I've quit college and I'm working as a carpenter's apprentice. And both of them said to me, Keir, if you want to be a carpenter, that's fine with us. But did it ever occur to you to be an actor? And it was instantaneous because in high school, I loved doing it, but it never occurred to me that someone would pay you to have fun. So it never occurred to me to be an actor, not in a million years. And it took them to say those words to change my whole life.
But they also gave you a love of books. How wonderful too.
Yeah.
It's true. And Keir, you will always find Keir with a book in his hand. He was perfectly happy during the pandemic because you give him a good book and he's constantly reading. So I guess that influenced him enormously.
Absolutely. I think you guys said you have to sort of say goodbye to us at 9.
Well, we have
watch-
to get up very early. I'm flying to Louisville, Kentucky, where my grandfather has is buried in a beautiful cemetery there called Cave Hill. And my father passed away in November, and so the family is gathering. It's the first time everybody's been vaccinated, and we're all going to gather and bury my mom's and dad's ashes next to his dad in Louisville, Kentucky on Thursday. So we're getting up very early tomorrow morning.
Okay, well, thank you both so much for spending this time with us. We are being recorded. There will be hundreds of people who will be looking at the interview in the coming weeks, wanting to know all about the both of you and that you're both doing well. And thank you so much for spending this time with us, Keir and Maya. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Always love doing these interviews.
It's great
with you.
to see you, Foster.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody else.
Thank you
Bye.
for coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Magda. Thanks, Mark.